Eric Newman.
Here.
Cindy Perham. Heather Dean. Present. Alex Durrell.
Here.
Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Sharon Pastilli.
Here.
Alice Kelly.
Here.
Frank O'Reilly.
Here.
Bill Pierce.
Here.
Marcy Spalier.
Here.
Josh Garskoff.
Here.
Joe Siebert.
Here.
Ruth Smay. Jay Wolk.
Here.
Matt Ambrose. Steve Barretts.
Here.
Hannah Gale. Lauren Bove. Here. Mark McDermott.
Here.
Jill Vergara. Karen Wackerman.
Here.
Carrie Burcham. Pamela Iacono.
Here.
Christine Messina.
Here.
Pete Tallman.
Here.
Brian Farnan.
Here.
Drew Georgiadis.
Here.
Dorian Herron.
Here.
Margaret Horton. Sam Cargill.
Here.
Michael Hurley.
Here.
Frank Batiste.
Here.
Eric Sunman.
Sorry, Betsy. Okay, will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 on our agenda, to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 27th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Vergara. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. I just wanted to make a motion to amend the minutes. I have several changes. One was on item number 3 on the call, Bill Gerber's district was listed incorrectly as District 7. It should be District 2. In the listing of the committee assignments for education and recreation, Alice Kelly was not listed, and she should be. And on item number 2 on the call for the consideration of the October 23rd, 2017 minutes, Representative Matt Jacobs abstained.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Dean. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend the minutes as stated by Representative Vergara? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend the minutes signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. So we'll now act upon the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 27th, 2017, as amended by Representative Vergara's motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We now have a consented calendar. The following items are eligible for a consent calendar, having received unanimous approval in committees at our committee meeting last week. Those are items 7 and 8 on our agenda, which are the 2 health department grants. An item may be divided from the consent calendar upon motion by a member. Do I have a motion to approve the 2 items on the consent calendar, items 7 and 8? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Bateson. Is there, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? The consent calendar carries unanimously. Item number 3, to consider and act upon the following reappointment to the Employees Retirement Board as recommended by the First Selectman. John B. Mahoney, unaffiliated, 520 Fulling Mill Lane North, term November 2017 to November 2022. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Lopez. Is there any discussion from the body on this item? We did have Mr. Mahoney appear in committee. Seeing none, any comment from the public? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 4, to consider and act upon the following reappointments to the Harbor Management Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Mark S. Foster, unaffiliated, 70 Cardinal Hill, term November 2017 to 2021. Harry B. French, Republican, 78 Sasko Hill Road, term November 2017 to 2021. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Ambrose. Is Mr. Harry French in the audience tonight? Why don't you come address the body at the microphone there?
Good evening. My name's Harry French. I've been a longtime Fairfield resident and also... Is that better? My name's Harry French. I've been a longtime Fairfield resident basically all of my life except for about a year when I was out in California. I own Henry C. Reed and Son Jewelers in town, so we've been in town for a long time. I've worked on the Harbor Management Commission. I enjoy it, and I hope to do a good job in the next foreseeable term.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on item 4, which is the 2 reappointments to the Harbor Management Commission? Is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Number 5, to consider and act upon the following appointment as an alternate to the Harbor Management Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Cheryl H. Beacock, unaffiliated, 68 Daves Lane, term November 17 to 19. Is there any, can I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Georgiadis. Is there any discussion on this item? We did receive a report from Beacock in committee. Seeing no discussion from the body, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item number 6, to consider and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Whereas pursuant to Public Act 14-98, Section 2D, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, through the power granted by the Office of Policy and Management, is authorized to extend financial assistance for projects under the Transit-Oriented Development and Pre-Development Program, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the State of Connecticut make available $200,000 in grant funds to the Town of Fairfield in order to undertake a TOD planning study of the Fairfield Metro Center site and surrounding area and to execute an assistance agreement in accordance thereto. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Fairfield is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Public Act 14-98, Section 2D of the Connecticut General Assembly and the guidelines of the Transit-Oriented Development and Pre-Development Program, and further resolved that the Town of Fairfield agrees to complete the planning study as specified in the Office of Policy and Management's award letter dated September 29th, 2017, and the fund request letter to the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development with scope of work dated March 6, 2017, and further resolved that Michael C. Tetro, First Selectman, be and hereby is authorized to accept in the name of and on behalf of the Town of Fairfield a TOD reimbursable grant from DECD in the amount of $200,000 to undertake said study, and further resolved that the First Selectman is hereby authorized on behalf of the Town of Fairfield to sign and execute any and all necessary documents to secure said grant, and further resolved that $200,000 is hereby appropriated to fund said study. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Kelly. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 1. I'm going to support this tonight. You know, anything to kickstart this project is a good thing. I do have a couple concerns. In hearing this presentation, to those of us that have been involved in this project for a long time, it seems like this might be staging this to go to some form of residential. And if that's where this economic model is going to lead us, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I understand that economies have changed. What I would like to see, though, is if that happens, if this study comes out in a year or two and generates some sort of report that says residential needs to be an integral part of this, remember on this body, this was a huge discussion back in 2002, 2003, where we appropriated monies based on this being a commercial development. That changing, I don't view this as simply a land use decision going forward. We can argue that, you know, it is, and we no longer have a say in it. But to those of us that feel passionate that this needs to maintain commercial, we need to develop our commercial base, we need to be involved and keep going forward and saying that. So this is our time to say, we want this to stay commercial. We really do. If it changes, we really need to open up a broader discussion. That's how I feel about that. Watching the Board of Finance, I thought Jim Walsh had an excellent statement, and I'm going to direct this to Mr. Barnhart and Mr. Tetreault. A lot has happened on this project over the past years. Then these three parties in this agreement, the state's making out pretty well because they're collecting the parking revenue. The private developers reaping unlimited benefits because we've dumped tens of millions of dollars into this property at taxpayer expense. Jim Walsh got up and said something, from now on going forward, guys, it needs to be, what about us? The local taxpayer. So anytime going forward now, I get they're going to get the $200,000 for the study, I'm all for it, but we need to start focusing now on what's in it for us anytime something comes up with this project, because we got to start reaping the benefits. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this item from the body? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of item number item number 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We'll now move to item number 9. The moderator has referred an ordinance establishing a housing trust fund sponsored by Phil Pierce, District 4, Karen Wackerman, District 7, Jill Vergara, District 7, Josh Garskoff, District 5, and Heather Dean, District 3, to the Legislation and Administration Committee under Rule 32 of the RTM Rules to Regulate. That was heard by LNA, and they will retain it in one more month before it comes to the body. Moving to the supplemental warning, item number 10. To consider and act upon the following resolution recommended by the Board of Education. Resolved that in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 10-153B, the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the Fairfield School Administrators Association for the period July 1, 2018 through July 30, 2019 is rejected. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Gale. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, RTM District 10. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. With this term on the RTM, I think I'll be on the body for close to a decade. And probably one of my least favorite things is having to debate labor contracts. Because you're dealing with people who you know, you like, and you have a great deal of respect for. But being an RTM rep, you know, that's the job that we signed up for, and these are, you know, clearly some difficult times that our town is facing, primarily the result of what's going on in the state. Before I get into a few points, I do want to be clear that I have a great deal of respect for the professionals that make up this bargaining unit. I've been studying the proposed increase of 2.49% in the context of the total compensation package, which includes retirement and healthcare benefits. And based on some concrete numbers that I'm going to go over shortly, I believe it is a bit too expensive for a town at this period of financial uncertainty. I did want to commend the first selectman. I got an email forwarded to me from Moderator Pierce a short while ago. And the first selectman said that due to significant financial challenges that the town is facing this year, I have not recommended any salary increases for department heads in fiscal year 2018. While I don't always agree with the first selectman, I do want to commend him for that. I think it's difficult to rationalize a 2.5% increase for the teacher administrators when good people on the town side will be getting 0. I think if you look at federal employees, which I think is a comparable population set, the level of raises they'll be getting for 2018, as reported by my federalretirement.com, which is the financial planning retirement website for federal and postal employees, for 2018, that will be 1.9%. So this means that the salary increase for teacher admins here in Fairfield is more than 30% higher than what federal workers will be receiving for 2018. Another metric I think you need to take a look at is the inflation rate. I got my data from inflationdata.com. For 2015, it was 0.12%. For 2016, it was 1.26%. And the average inflation rate for the last 6 months through November 2017 was 1.96%, all well below this proposed 2.49% increase. Our Board of Finance, going back to the prior term, requested that this contract be flatlined. I think these numbers speak for themselves, but I do think there's more to report on this story. I think one of the challenges with giving this bargaining unit a 2.5% increase is that it potentially raises the floor on all future negotiations with other bargaining units. I mean, how do you provide an increase like this and then expect the good men and women who make up our police and fire department to get raises that are lower? What about our teachers? Our teachers make up the heart and soul of our town. Won't they deserve the same level of increase, potentially more? And herein lies the problem with this agreement. In all likelihood, it will make other labor agreements more expensive, all during a period in which our town is working hard to make every dollar count, and a lot of our town department heads are pinching pennies. I also believe, and the superintendent is here, thank you for that data you sent me on retirements. I think it's important to take a look at the entire package. Most of us participate in a Social Security system, and we contribute 6.2% of our income up to the IRS maximum. For someone my age, I would receive a return of approximately $32,000 a year. Someone who falls under this agreement, historically, they've been contributing 6%. Now, I understand with the new agreement coming out of Hartford, that's going up to 7%, which helps. But if you look at that memo that was sent to me, and you take an employee under this agreement who's at salary category 3 at step 6, for his or her 6% contribution to the Connecticut Teachers Retirement System, under a normal retirement with 35 years of service, you would get an annual pension in 2 years in excess of $111,000. That compares to $32,000 for what I and others will receive from contributing 6.2% to Social Security. Now, some might say that, these are monies are paid by the state, and they're not part of this contract. Okay, fair point. But I would disagree. When you're looking at an individual's potential increase for a coming year, I think you need to look at, the total compensation. And we all know that the state is looking very hard at pushing potentially a third of these at some point, back onto municipalities like Fairfield. And if that isn't as difficult of an environment that we're in, we now have the issue of the federal tax plan, which is expected to pass Congress any day now, and any local property owners in the town will only be able to deduct $10,000 of their combined state and local income taxes, which means for every additional dollar we now spend on town and school services, it'll result in even a higher after-tax cost for all of us. So where do we stand? Well, I stand right here. But no doubt, arbitration process and proceedings can be costly and drawn out. And I think one of my colleagues from District 2 made a very good point that was reflected in the materials that were sent to us, that, some of the increases are from the steps. And I hear you, I agree with that point, but I don't think you can hide from the fact that it's a 2.49% increase. 2.49%, significantly above what federal employees are getting. It's above what town department heads will be getting. It's significantly above what the BOF was targeting, and it's also above the inflation rate. So what I'm hoping is that tonight we'll come together Based on what I read, if this is not accepted tonight, it does technically go into arbitration, but the union can mediate the agreement. And I think if they went into mediation and came back with a 2% increase as opposed to 2.49%, that they'd probably get 100% support from this body. So thank you, Moderator Pierce.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. I'm going to support this contract for a number of reasons, but the main reason is the concept of market value. Representative Hurley may have been referring to me about, my comment about step versus wage increase. The step increase is 70% of this increase. So I think you do actually have to get away from the concept of this is a 2.5% increase and more into the concept of where the people in this bargaining unit fall in terms of where they are in their careers. You hire someone in at a low step, they get a year of experience, and their market value goes up. The next year, they step up to someone with an additional year of experience. There is built into that contract an increase that factors in that year of experience. So, it would be like any profession or many professions where you go into it at a lower salary, you get a year of experience, you are now worth more. You can either stay here and get more, or you can go somewhere else and get more. In this case, in Fairfield, all of these contracts are available online. So I just pulled them off of, the ones that have been negotiated. A couple of them are a year behind, but I pulled them off of the websites for every town south of ours, of which we are some significantly, we're below in a significant way, many of them, and less significant in others, but we are the lowest of any town south of us. And if you compare to Trumbull, we're slightly above Trumbull. Trumbull's a year behind us, so we don't know where they're going to be next year. So in terms of market value for these people, these administrators, going through their steps, we're going to lose people if we pay them below market, as we should. In terms of the value of them going up their steps, so there's 6 steps, I think most of the people here know this, but there are 6 steps, and each year you move up a step typically. So people moving up a contractual agreement from the last contract, that total is over $100,000. The increase for the people that had hit the top step last year, they're getting a 1.5% increase, which is really cost of inflation. So Representative Hurley gave some facts and figures about inflation, but inflation has gone up, and it will go up, and I think everyone's kind of expecting it to go up, and that's what the economy has picked up significantly. And that's the 1.5% that the people that have hit the top level are getting. Everyone else is not getting a cost of living increase. They're just getting their step. So while it comes out to 2.5%, and while that may seem high, it's because we have younger people in lower, that have started the step process, and they're still getting steps. They will cap out at step 6, and then they'll get a cost of living increase after that. But if we had a bunch of older people who had been around for a lot longer, not necessarily older, but they've been around longer, they would have hit, in this school system, they would have hit step 6, and they'd all be getting 1.5% next year, and then we'd be looking at a 1.5% increase. But because they're, you know, we people at step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5, we're looking at bigger increases because their market value has gone up and it's expected. We knew this last year, that this amount, just people stepping up, they would get this amount. So the total amount incremental from this 1.5% increase for the people at the top step, which is about 20 people out of the 41, is $47,000, $47,500 around there. So I find a 1.5% wage increase to be reasonable, given that, I mean, inflation may be higher than that this year, the way things are going. As Mr. Representative Hurley mentioned, in the past 6 months, it's been higher than that. And I think, I'm sure if I don't point it out, someone else will, so I'll save you time. We've been down this road before. When you have a market value contract that it basically, you know, goes to arbitration, I mean, there's a reason we're in this situation that we are now. It's because neither side liked it. Both sides came and met in the middle, and they both gave something, and that's called a negotiation. We're here, and if we reject or accept to reject or whatever, you know, we'll end up spending money on legal fees. I don't want to project what would happen this time, and anything could happen, and maybe the administrators will say, yeah, we were just joking, which I doubt. But last time we did go to arbitration, and we spent $100,000 in legal fees. And let me tell you, it was a fair contract last time, and it went to arbitration, and we lost. And I do believe this is a fair contract, so I'm going to be voting for it. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Representative Ambrose.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Peter Ambrose, District 1. I'm not adverse to obtaining legal fees. However, I cannot support this bargaining agreement this evening. It is not a question of whether the 41 members of this association deserve a raise. They do deserve a raise. What it comes down to is that we're in a time of economic and financial uncertainty. With the cuts made by the state of Connecticut to our school district, I find it unreasonable to support this contract at this time, especially a contract which is for a 1-year period of time with a above average wage increase of 2.49%. We have been, the most recent contracts that we've been advocating have been 2%. We will soon entertain the contract for the teachers. Our neighboring towns like Stratford are struggling now to just maintain the educational budget. A recent Post article this Saturday indicated that the town of Stratford may be cutting 40 teacher jobs. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned as to what's going to happen going forward. I believe it's time to step back. And until we have a better comfort level as to where we have, as to the funding available, I do not think this is the time to approve this contract. Thank you.
Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Josh Garskoff, District 5. Through you, Mr. Moderator, hearing the comments, I'd like to ask someone from the administration or a representative of the administration to compare this contract with some surrounding neighboring towns and what their increases look like.
Thank you. Stephen Cedor on behalf of the Board of Education. CABE produces at various times a document that publishes the settlements of various administrators' units across the state. And I think it's best to compare ourselves to those within our district reference group, which is B. And so what I can do is give you those settlements from B. And so according to CABE, Glastonbury, their settlement was for a 3-year deal with increases of 2.44%, 2.63%, and 2.24%. In Woodbridge, 2.5%, second year 3.0%, third year 3.0%. In Hebron, 2.0%, 2.25%, 2.3%. New Fairfield, 3.25%, 3.38%, 3.07%. Orange, 2.25%, 2.5%, 2.5%. And Avon, 2.49%, 2.1%, 1.83%. Now, the first number that I gave for each of those was the settlement for that particular district that resulted in the wages for that particular year, which is 2018-19, which is the year that we are in for this contract. Did I answer your question? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And those, I assume, also include the steps for those particular contracts as well, similar to ours?
Those are both, yes, those are, include the general wage increase plus the step increment.
Thank you. So hearing that we're pretty much in line with our neighbors or similar towns who are neighbors, and hearing that much of this increase is also built in and happens whether we approve this contract or not because it's steps and not an increase, and knowing that these are valuable employees that make our town part of what makes our town what it is and why people want to live here, I fully support this and I urge you to as well.
Is there any further discussion from the body? Representative Iacono.
Thank you. Representative Iacono, District 8. There's definitely no doubt that we support our staff here. There's no doubt that we have an incredibly talented leadership team. I know quite a few of them. Some of them personally, some of them professionally. I've worked with them. They're fantastic. But some of the arguments being made on the floor right now really aren't apples to apples. What we were presented with from CABE are 3-year contract deals. This is a 1-year deal. And honestly, that's the deal breaker for me. I wanted to see a multi-year deal. I've long said on this floor that I don't have an issue giving salary increases as long as I know I'm getting something back on medical. I recognize that this bargaining unit, to their credit, has been a leader in contributions and that they're giving 25%. And they're way ahead of everybody, including our employees on the town side. However, not knowing what's coming for year 2 and what's coming for year 3 is too much of an unknown for me. And therefore, I cannot support this contract. I'd be more inclined to look at it as a total package and a multi-year deal. I understand there are reasons on the Board of Ed and for wanting to get off track of negotiating multiple contracts. If that were the case, then I think they should have gone with a 2-year contract or a 4-year contract. That would have gotten you off track. And that's what a negotiation is, a give and a take, a give and a take, you know, and then you split down the middle. And that's at least been my experience. So, yes, well, I think it's true that a 1.5 is not unreasonable. I have an issue not knowing with what's going to happen in the future. I'd also like to seriously have the Board of Education look at how the steps work, how the bubble results, and figure out a way to mitigate that. I don't know the answer to that, but I would just ask that they look into it and figure out if there's a way to close the gaps. And if that's shrinking steps, which has its downfalls on both ends, on the management end and on the union end, I think that that should be looked at. So that's my opinion. I can't support this contract at this time. I do encourage the Board of Ed to negotiate a multi-year contract when we're back doing this a year from now. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion from the body? Seeing none, is there any comment from the public?
Jennifer Maxon Kennelly, on Edgewood Place, also Board of Ed member, and I sat in on the negotiating for this contract. Obviously, there's a lot I can't say because it takes place in the negotiations itself, but there are comments tonight which I have no problem repeating. First of all, Representative Iacono makes reference to not comparing apples to apples. Well, a variety of the comments that took place here tonight did exactly that same thing, and they're simply not valid arguments. When we talk about the department heads, I mean, obviously, if this vote were to pass, it would then be going to arbitration. Well, department heads in this town are not able to do that. So therefore, that can't be a comparison that is valid. Talking about federal workers does not work as a comparison. Talking about the inflation rate does not work as a point of comparison. To bring up the issue raised at Board of Finance, very valid issues. I certainly respect their point of view, but I do remind you that there was a Board of Finance member who sat in on these negotiations and spoke emphatically that we had gotten a good, fair deal. It's not a deal anybody was happy with on both sides. It was a fair deal. To go from a 2.49% to a 2.0%, which Representative Hurley indicated was a slam dunk, you're talking about a savings of $30,000. Right out of the gate, the moment this goes to arbitration, although of course Attorney Sudor can correct me if I'm wrong, even if we were to settle it in mediation, we would have already had to proceed with arbitration, which means we already have to pay for arbitrator, which means we've already lost that money, even if we were to win with a one-year deal. Representative Ambrose spoke about the uncertainty of this time and how that makes this unacceptable to him. If you want to see uncertainty, there's no certainty that our going into arbitration would involve a one-year deal. What is to stop the union? Who could blame them for wanting to go for the 3-year deal? And you want to talk about uncertainty? I have no idea what that would come back with. Our negotiation was for this 1-year deal. This is what we secured with Board of Finance representative approval, with unanimous Board of Ed approval. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, I stand behind our staff. I'm standing here before you to argue for the passage of this contract, and that we'll go back and then have an earnest and robust and rigorous, and I'm sure late into the night negotiation session a year from now. Forget a year from now, 9 months from now. But this was a deal that was struck with many good reasons, and when we talk about discussing this back in a year, that is exactly where we hope we are, because I think if this goes to arbitration, we'll be looking at a 3-year deal that I can't predict in any way to you what kind of a deal that would be coming back. So if uncertainty is a reason to vote against this contract, I can't stress enough the uncertainty you are prompting us to walk right into if you should cast your vote in that manner.
Does anyone else from the public have a comment?
Well, not from the public, but just turn off. I turned it off. A number of you are new and have not voted on a education contract before, and would it be helpful if our attorney explained that you have to actually vote no to vote yes?
Sure. Attorney Sudor, do you want to explain the vote?
It's a strange way the state has its rules.
Thank you, Phil. Steve Sudor for the Board of Ed. The motion that is on the floor is a motion to reject the contract. And the reason that exists is because of the way the statute is worded. Essentially, the statute is worded such that a contract that has been negotiated becomes a contract unless it is rejected by the legislative body, which is you. So if you vote to reject the contract and you vote yes, you're voting to reject the contract. We are asking that you vote no. If you vote no, that means you support the contract. So it's a little bit opposite than what you're probably used to be dealing with. But voting no is a vote to approve this contract. And as you've heard from us tonight, we'd ask that you all do vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, we'll come back to the body for further comment. Representative Farnan.
Brian Farnan, District 9. Should the attorney be opining on making a recommendation to the RTM on which way to vote? Did I hear that correctly?
I'm asking that what you do vote is no, so that it does pass. I'm representing my client who wishes to have this approved.
Okay. I do take issue with that. Just from a process perspective, I don't think it is appropriate for legal counsel representing any portion of the town to do that. But hopefully that doesn't sway you one way or the other. 2.49%, I think, is very much deserved of our administrators. But and honestly, I would like to pay them more. But the reality is our state's broke. So I cannot vote in favor of this contract, although I would like to, because of what is going on at the state level, where we basically have a broke parent company to us, and things are only going to get worse. I'm an officer of a quasi-public. I have a frontline seat to it. The next few years are really going to be ugly for the state of Connecticut. So, we'd all would love to see this 2.49% or 2.5 increase occur, but I think the reality is, with the state in the situation that it is, and with the recent passage of the new federal tax laws, there's a lot of potential headwinds that our town is unfortunately going to face. Thank you.
Is there any further comment from the body? Seeing none, we're going to now vote. And again, the item before us, I'll read it again. Resolved that in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 10-153B, the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the Fairfield School Administrators Association for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019 is rejected. So a yes vote is in favor of rejection. A no vote is in favor of not rejection, which means favor of the contract. And we will do a roll call vote.
Pete Ambrose? Yes. Ed Bateson?
Yes.
Nancy Lefkowitz? No. Bill Gerber?
No.
Aaron Lopez?
No.
Eric Newman?
No.
Cindy Perham?
No.
Heather Dean?
No.
Alex Durrell?
No.
Matt Jacobs?
No.
Sharon Pastilli?
No.
Alice Kelly?
No.
Frank O'Reilly?
Yes.
Bill Pierce?
No.
Marcy Spalier?
No.
Josh Garskoff?
No.
Joe Siebert?
No.
Ruth May? Not here. Jay Walk?
No.
Steve Barretts?
No.
Hannah Gale?
No.
Lauren Bove?
No.
Mark McDermott?
No.
Jill Vergara?
No.
Karen Wackerman?
No.
Carrie Burcham?
No.
Pamela Iacono?
Yes.
Christine Messina?
No.
Pete Tolman?
Yes.
Brian Farnan?
Yes.
Drew Georgiadis?
No.
Doreen Herron?
No.
Sam Cargill?
Yes.
Michael Hurley?
Yes.
Frank Patisse?
No.
Eric Sunman?
No.
And Betsy, I think Representative Matthew Ambrose came in as well.
Matt Ambrose? Thank you.
We also have Representative Horton, who I think came in late.
No. Margaret Horton? No. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion to reject has failed. Moving on to the final item on the agenda, to consider and act upon any other matters presented to said meeting and which may be properly acted upon the rules of the representative town meeting. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:45, moved by Representative Dean. Thank you.